Okay, today we're going to do some stuff you've probably already done before, but there's also going to be something you've never seen before in here, so it's exciting. I know you've all found the midpoint before, I know you've all done the distance equation before, and I know you've done the Pythagorean Theorem. But we're going to get a little into some theory today, so this will be fairly interesting. First things first, let's write a definition. With your group, please write a definition of a midpoint. I got it. Remember, your definition should accurately describe the object while excluding things that it is not.
Wait, no, on the line. It's the point in the middle of 2 points. I don't really.
That's good start. Easy. You might want to switch to kneecap there. Quite jumpy this morning.
Points to the lines. It's just the middle point. Yeah, I know what it's like. Been there, done that.
Interesting. Just poke at the bear.
Midpoint is instead of midpoint is a point that's in between.
Working together, there's a unique idea.
So should we can always
Do the header I wonder if you do something like that, export it as like a export function.
Oh, I was like,
wait, are you putting those notes on the
Okay, so do one that says geometry quiz 1, and then email it. But remember, it's going to be printed in black and white. So you can call it. Don't do it now. Well, just you'll see when you export, it'll give you choices of image. Try that and see how you like it. All right, Michael. What's a midpoint?
I said that a midpoint is a point that is in between 2 points on a line segment.
How do you do? It's okay to criticize somebody else's ideas. You won't be scarred by it. That's right.
I like it, but I think we thought the midpoint was exactly halfway between the 2 points.
Oh. Oh. Read your definition again, Michael.
A point that is in between 2 points on a line segment.
Is that a midpoint?
Well, based on what you said, probably not, but I don't really know.
But according to your definition, it
Yeah,
is.
that would be, yeah.
Okay, so how can we change your definition to where we need to be?
A point that is halfway in between 2 points on the line segment.
Halfway in between 2 points. Does everybody understand what he means by halfway? Any questions about that? That eliminates this, because that's not halfway, so therefore we'd have to be right there. Okay, I like that. Good. Any problems? Okay, we're going with that. Say it once more, please, so everybody can get it down.
A point that is halfway in between 2 points on a line segment.
Good. Terminology is good. He's using line segment instead of line. There's a picture of one. Let's talk about those little dashes. Those are called tick marks. I didn't have time to explain those the other day, but tick marks are used to denote things that are equal in the picture. So in this picture, for instance, PM, the segment PM, is equal to the segment MQ. Let me write that down for you. PM is equal to MQ. Okay, that's the easy one. The harder one is the following. What other mathematical relationships do you see in that picture? Okay.
The line PQ, the line segment PQ is twice as long as PM
Ooh.
or MQ.
So PM times 2 is equal to PQ, or MQ times 2 is equal to PQ. Very good. We could also, if you prefer, we could say that PM is half of PQ. Divide both sides by 2. Good. And then from what we did on Wednesday, this relationship still exists. The two small parts still add up to be the big part. So a midpoint is still a betweenness point, like we talked about Wednesday, but now it's special in that it's exactly in the middle. These first three relationships only work when we're talking about a midpoint. So you take a line segment PQ. It has an infinite number of points between P and Q. However, it only has one midpoint. Okay, problems? Easy peasy, yes? Good. All right, on a coordinate plane, we take these two endpoints A and B, and we give them points, x1, y1, x2, y2. They are anywhere on the coordinate plane. If that's the case, then we can calculate the midpoint by using the midpoint formula. Now, some of you are going to try to memorize that, and you might succeed. That's great. However, what's more important is you understand what you're doing. You're finding the average of the x-coordinates. You're finding the average of the y-coordinates. So remember, a midpoint is a location. It's another point. So you should get an x value and a y value. I'm going to ask some of you to find a midpoint. You're going to tell me 7. And that's going to be your entire answer. And that, of course, would be wrong, because you need two answers, because it's a midpoint which has a location. By the way, you might want to get them out now. You're going to need your calculators. That's snazzy.
Yeah.
They came like that?
Yeah.
Do they serve a purpose, or are they just there for style?
It's just there for style.
That's cool. All right, here we go. Find the midpoint M of the segment ST, given the coordinates for S and the coordinates for T. Probably don't need your calculator with this, but I don't want to assume anything. While you're working, I guess I assumed too much. You all know how to find an average, right? How? Yeah. Add the numbers together, divide by the amount of numbers. Since we have two numbers, you would add the numbers, divide by 2. Be careful when you add. Zach, what'd you get?
I didn't finish yet. I'm still writing down the problem before I do it.
Okay, write quicker. I got a lot of stuff to do.
Okay.
Come on.
Here, I'll just do it now.
Okay, cool.
So I got 2.5 for the first one,
Okay.
and then I got,
2.5 you said?
yeah,
Okay.
and then I got a negative 11.5%.
How do you do? Vicky, you're shaking your head no. Why not?
Because I got negative 5.5 and 5.5.
Okay. So there seems to be some discrepancy here. Vicky, how'd you set it up? Vicky, how'd you set it up?
Oh wait, never mind.
No. Vicky, how did you set it up?
So I put 3 plus minus 14, which is just minus 14, not plus.
Yeah.
Okay, divide by 2, and then I got negative 5.5.
Wait, hold on. We'll come back to that. Let's set up for the y then.
Okay, and then I got 2 minus 9, and then divided by 2.
Okay. You said negative 5.5 and negative 3.5?
Yeah.
That's what I got too.
Okay.
You added those two and divided. It's x from one, x from the other.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's leave it in fraction form, by the way. Okay. Yes, 5.5 and 11 halves are the same thing, but when we get into weird fractions, like 2/3, I'd rather have it in exact fraction form versus decimal form. Problems? Good. Try again. Read that problem carefully, because it's a different problem. You might want to draw a picture.
Would you guys guess? I got 2 negative 4s.
Then I had 2 negative.
But then, don't you have to like multiply by 2 to like kind of KI? I don't know, it's just a different question than the first one.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
So, no, it's a reduction. Just give us 2 negative 2 4. Which would make sense. No. Hey, do you have SATs? What? You don't have to rely on it.
I think so.
Did you guys get on the SATs?
I got a 71 on the first one, 88 on the 81 overall.
That's really good. I have e-tests today.
I had some other things
I'll vote.
What?
I'll vote.
You guys were-
You got like a 90.
Seriously?
I
I'm surprised.
You might be the only one who gets that.
You got an 80.
Nicely made.
my class is doing that. So like, we just have a lot of
Any ideas?
no.
Sorry. Should let you know it's coming like a ninja.
We both got 2 negative 4. But
That's the midpoint of KM.
yeah, I don't know how to get the.
Any ideas? Okay, so let's talk about this problem because a lot of people made the same mistake, and that is you took the 2 points I gave you and you calculated the midpoint. Yes? But that's not what the problem's asking you. That's what I was asking you in problem number 1. In problem number 2, it's a different setup. If you look at my picture, if you took those 2 points and you found the midpoint, you'd actually be finding the midpoint of Km, which would be over here. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the coordinates of L so that M is the midpoint. Now there's 2 ways to do this. No one did it the second way, but a couple groups made a breakthrough on the first way to solve this. Alina, what do you got for us?
So we know the midpoint, so I wrote the midpoint equation. M equals x1 plus x2 over 2.
Great. So if we're looking for a midpoint, we take the 2x coordinates, we add them up and divide by 2. Back to you.
Okay, so should I say my equation?
Mm-hmm.
So my equation was, so we know midpoint is 5 times negative 6. So I put that into the M, or the midpoint of the equation. So it's 5 equals, so now we're looking for the x value, so x plus 1 over 2. And then for the y.
Okay, hold on, let's stop there. So let me explain that a little bit more. What she did is she took the 2x coordinates, one of the x coordinates is x, the other x coordinate is 1, added them up and divided by 2, and that has to equal the x coordinate of the midpoint. Just like when we did part 1, we added up the 2x coordinates, 3 and negative 14, divided by 2 to get negative 11 halves. That became the x coordinate of the midpoint. The difference in problem 2 is that we know the x coordinate of the midpoint. Is that a solvable equation in red? Yeah, one variable, one equation. Solve it. Did you get 9? Hot diggity. Okay, so then you repeated that for the y value, right? Tell me what equation you got.
So negative 6 equals y plus 2 over 2.
Negative 12 is equal to y plus 2, so y is equal to, I got negative 14, yes? Awesome. So you guys were close. You just didn't know what to set those elements equal to.
I did another way.
Oh,
I
excellent. Hold on. Everybody good with this method? Not my preferred method. Hopefully Gabe has a better method. What'd you do?
What?
Did you get the right answer, by the way?
I got one of the right answers.
Ooh,
I got
okay,
that
we'll
right.
take 50%.
So, I multiplied 5 and negative 6 by 2 because then I added. Oh wait, I was supposed to get the right. Oh, never mind. I get the right answer. I multiplied these by 2, then I added 1 into the answers now.
You sure you didn't subtract 1 and 2?
Wait. No.
You subtract.
I think I
2
subtracted.
times 5 is 10, minus 1 is 9.
Oh, okay.
Good. That's not a bad approach. That's a third approach. Second approach, the way that I do it is I say to myself, self, what do I need to do to go from 1 to 5?
Multiply by 5.
Nope. It's an addition and subtraction thing.
Add by 5.
Add 4. So I add 4 to 5, 9. What do I do to go from 2 to negative 6? Subtract 8. Negative 6 minus 8. Negative 14. Okay. So there's 3 different methods. The first one, which a couple groups discovered on their own. Gabe's method, which works perfectly well, multiply the midpoint by 2 and subtract one of the endpoints. Third method, whatever I do to go from an endpoint to the midpoint, I then have to go from the midpoint to the other point. Any one of those works to find that value. Beautiful. Questions? Go.
So for the first one, when you added 4, you got 5, but because it's negative 6, how do you make it negative 14 instead of just 2?
Because to go from 2 to negative 6, I have to subtract negative 8. Or sorry, I have to subtract 8. So negative 6 minus 8 is negative 14. To go from 2 to negative 6, I subtract 8. Therefore, negative 6 minus 8 is negative 14.
Oh, okay.
All right. The last example. Oops. Didn't want to do that. Draw a picture first. Solve this. Once you get an answer, take a 2-minute break. So I should have all groups, everybody with an answer and a break taken by, let's say, 9:29. 5 minutes. This is like a reward system. You don't get an answer, you don't get a break. Against the rules.
If the midpoint is always subtracting isn't the midpoint exactly in the middle?
Oh,
Wait, did you finish?
sorry.
I'm gonna push this shit off.
You ended up with.
Let's make it.
Minus 6.
I think it's 5x plus 2. Is it 5x?
Did I ask him about it?
What?
Why it would be equal? It's a midpoint.
And it was even nice to get the little bit is the answer, so.
If 14x plus 5 is 6 minus 3x, that means 14x plus 2. No, listen. 14x plus 2 is a big difference. If 14x plus 2 is then 6 minus 3x is that much. You subtract it and you get the other.
You don't get it right.
So then x equals 1 now. And then you plug x
Guys, next week is gonna be like an assembly on Sunday. Yeah, so we go from like, it's like the second half of the time, like, it's gonna be a few days, so it's gonna be like the second half of the second period. Wait, it's gonna be the second half of the second period. So what do you have next year?
ELA.
So you're gonna miss half of it. I'm gonna miss half of Spanish.
Because it's 17 over 2.
But it's from like 11. I mean like, no. 10 is 30 or 10, no, 11.
Obviously, I do, okay, now, I get the go away from me vibe, and then all of a sudden you want me to wait to see your answer.
What?
Did you get an answer yet?
No, not really.
You should just leave it out all the time and see how long it takes. Would you go? Hold on. All right, guys. What do you get?
Yeah, I mean,
Ella, what'd you get? Correct.
I'm still doing it. Oh wait, I was done.
5 over 2.
5 with 2?
I got 2. It's 2.
It's 2? Yeah, I got 2.
Maybe we're just midpoint of the segment. I said O is the midpoint and all this.
Exactly in the middle of the quiet.
Why isn't it? They are. Well, it's 6 minus 3.
Oh, I get it. You just wanted
No, because you gotta find solve fractions. So you got the setup correct. Now, what equation do you use? Look at that picture. It doesn't even matter, does it? From what we did on Wednesday. What equation do you use for that picture?
Yes.
How'd you get 11? Oh, wait, it's quick 6.
We did between his problems and all that. We did between his problems with trying that setup. 100%. You're talking in coordinate on the line segment.
What do we do after that?
I done it wrong. What about 5x?
So, with the answer, the answer is 6x minus 3, or 6x squared is
Yeah, you weren't here when we talked, yes, you're correct, but that doesn't tell us what x is, you need to solve for x. So what equation do you get from that?
Oh, these are the
Can I
setup.
set it? Yeah.
I don't know why I can say that.
That's one way to do it. Go ahead and set up an equation, I'll come back.
It's negative 6 minus 3x.
Hold on.
You are 100% asking for
I don't know if that's right, but I'm going to try saying equals 0. So I'm going to
Forget about all this stuff. What do you get from that?
That sounds better. I got it.
If I just gave you that.
And then that equals 7x, and then you put it and then I got PO with equals is equal to both of these. Set them up equally, and then you would.
All kinds of different answers. All right, so a lot of different approaches to this problem. Some incredibly wrong, some very good, and some are very good but different. So we get P here, R here, O here. What's special about the point O? It's midpoint, which means
It's halfway.
it's halfway. Okay, it's in the middle. All those other things. 14x plus 2 represents that whole distance, and OR is 6 minus 3x. Okay, so now this is where we diverged into all the different methods. So one group said, well, wait, if O is the midpoint, what does that tell you about the segment PO? Martha?
The same thing as
Right, so it's 6 minus 3x. Okay, great. Now, where did you go to from there, Martha?
we did 2 times 6 minus 3x.
Yeah, and I'm going to write it a different way just because I think it's a little bit easier to see. But with this picture, it goes back to the problems we did on Wednesday. The two little parts add up to be the big part. 6 minus 3x plus 6 minus 3x equals 14x plus 2. Solvable? Yes. And when you did that, what did you get for x, Martha? 1/2. Okay, I'll trust you. Maybe it's wrong, I don't care. It's right? Okay, great. X equals 1/2. Second method. Some people realize, well, wait a second. PO is the big segment minus the little segment, OR. So I'm going to get rid of this. Get rid of this. And say, okay, PO comes from the big segment minus the little segment, which gives me 17x minus 4. Be careful with your parentheses there. Which then means these two halves have to be equal. Set 17x minus 4 equal to 6 minus 3x. Go from there. You'll get the same answer. All of that gets us to the same value of x, which is 1/2. However, that is not the answer to the question. The answer to the question is, how long is PO? So whatever you get for that answer, you have to plug it back in to find PO. And PO, if I go back to the 6 minus 3x, Let's see, that's 3 halves and that's 12, so 9 halves. The midpoint gets us this value, whether we're using that or we're using that. The rest of that problem is done by just solving problems like we did on Wednesday. The two little parts add up to be the big part. Okay. It's a little hard to see because I wrote all over it, but I set it up the same way you did, Martha, with the 2 times. Okay. Bisector. What does the prefix bi mean? 2. Sector. Everybody know what that means? Sect, to cut. So bisector means to cut in half. Not cut into 2 pieces. Cut in half. Okay? So a point that's between 2 other points on a segment would be between, but it's not a bisector. A midpoint is a bisector because it's splitting it into 2 equal halves. There's some pictures. Okay, the first one is a segment with a midpoint on it. That midpoint is a bisector. The second picture is a line passing through a segment. So the line becomes the bisector. And then the third wonky thing is a plane being a bisector. Lines cannot be bisected. They go on forever. You can't fold a line in half. Right? Beautiful. Next on the agenda, one of my favorites. We're going to skip this. I had this in here thinking we might need practice, but I'm thinking we're pretty good on simplifying radicals, yes? Okay, good. 6 square roots of 2, 2 square roots of 5, 3 square roots of 10. Great. Okay. This is what we really want to talk about. I love this. What's it?
Do you have a pencil sharpener?
I do not. But if you go to one of the rooms down the hallway, you can pop in and use their pencil sharpener.
Oh, it's
They'll
okay.
be very nice.
It's okay.
What's the Pythagorean theorem? Really? Maddie?
A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
Technically speaking, you're wrong. But if you stop any schlub on the street and say, what's the Pythagorean theorem? Most people will tell you a squared plus b squared equals c squared because that's how you learned it. The top paragraph is the Pythagorean theorem, but who cares? First of all, it has to be a right triangle. What's a right triangle? It's a triangle with a little box in the corner like that guy. The 2 short sides squared, added together, equal the third side squared. The third side is the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is also the longest side in the triangle. Okay, I know you've done this before. We're going to do a couple quick practices because I want to get to the distance formula before we leave today. Okay, everybody good? No. You don't need to write down that paragraph. Just the a squared plus b squared equals c squared is good enough. Okay, find the length of the third side of a right triangle. If the 2 shorter sides measure 5 and 12. Here we go. Is that 5, A, B, or C? Is that 5A, B, or C?
B.
B. Is that 12, A, or C?
C.
No. A. Right. These have to be the 2 short sides. 5 squared plus 12 squared equals C squared. 25 plus 144 equals C squared. C squared is equal to 169. Take the square root of both sides. You get plus or minus 13. Okay, so we need to talk about this for a second. It seems I'm contradicting myself again when I tell you the following. We're only going to take 13 as an answer. But wait, you said anytime you're solving an equation with a square root that you take the positive and the negative if it's an equal sign. You're right, I did. Why doesn't negative 13 work here? Sure.
Because the line can't be negative.
Good. You can't have a negative distance, so we throw out the negative, and you get 13. Do not expect all Pythagorean theorem problems to have pretty answers like that. They will often be ugly square roots. Leave them in square root form. Later on, we'll talk about decimals. Okay, moving on. Example number 2. And I know I'm going quick, I'm sorry, but this shouldn't be that difficult for you, I wouldn't think. All right, number 2, in a lovely shade of blue. Find the length of the shortest side of a right triangle if the other two sides measure 25 and 14. 14 squared is equal to 25 squared plus a squared. The biggest number must always be by itself on the other side. 625 equals, help me, 14 squared, 196 maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, 196 plus a squared. So a squared is equal to 429. Is that right? Yes? Okay, so then a is equal to the square root of 429. Somebody type that in their calculator. See, is that a nice answer or is it ugly? Sam, what do you got? Not pretty. No. Then we're going to leave it like that. The biggest problem that people run into with Pythagorean theorem is they put the two sides in the wrong place. Remember, the A and the B have to be the shortest sides. The C is always the longest side. Okay, doke. Last but not least, the distance formula. You've done it before. You probably didn't enjoy it. It's nasty, but I'm going to show you where it comes from. I know you haven't done this. And by showing you where it comes from, I think it's going to help you understand and remember where the formula comes from. And it's based all on Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so here's the setup. I've got a coordinate plane. I take two random points and I put them on the coordinate plane. One point is x1, y1. The other point is x2, y2. I'm looking for the distance between those 2 points. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, that one point looks like it's at 2, 3, 2, 2.5, and the other point, no, they're just random points that could be anywhere on the plane. In order to find the distance, I need to know two things. I need to know the difference between their x coordinates and the difference between their y coordinates. And so I get that set up. And you'll notice the biggest thing here is all of a sudden I have a triangle. And since the difference between the y coordinates is a vertical line and the difference between the x coordinates is a horizontal line, I end up with a right triangle. Where the hypotenuse is D. So now I can set up Pythagorean theorem. That mess, wow, that was quick. That mess is Pythagorean theorem. The only difference is instead of equaling d squared, I took the square root of both sides. And that's the distance formula you've seen before. There are plenty of opportunities to screw up in that equation. Make sure you copy it down correctly. The minuses are inside the parentheses, the plus is on the outside. The difference between the x coordinates squared plus the difference between the y coordinates squared. Okie dokie, let's give it a shot. Evan, 3, -5 as x1, y1, or -3, -5 as x2, y2? There's no wrong answer there, it's just personal preference. No, hold on, let me clarify my question. Do you want this to be x1, y1, or x2, y2? x1, y1. Okay, beautiful. Then, the square root of -3 minus 4, quantity squared, plus, I did that one, -5 minus -6, quantity squared. There's the setup. Be careful adding and subtracting, please. Done. -7 squared is 49, plus 1 is 50, the square root of 50 is 5 squared, it's a 2. And at some point we'll take a decimal value, but for now just leave it as simplified radical. If Devin would have given a different answer, meaning wanting -3, -5 is x2, y2, you'd still get the same answer. It just looks a little bit different in the calculations. Questions? Get this mess out of the way. We'll do one more and then we'll be done. You'll notice a subtle difference between these two problems. In the first problem, I said the exact distance, which means we're leaving it in terms of a square root. The second one is an approximate distance. In that case, we're going to take a decimal value there. What does that mean? Anybody? Cool. Never heard that sound before. Maddie, you look guilty. Is that your phone? No, it's not. Better not be. Sure. All right, we'll go with it then. All right, quickly. Whoops. D is equal to the square root of 1 minus 6 quantity squared plus 1 minus 14 quantity squared. -5 squared plus -13 squared, which equals 25 plus 169, which is equal to, I'm running out of space, equals the square root of 194, which is approximately what?
Square root of 14.
No, it's not. No, that's 196.
13.9.
What is the square root of 194 on the calculators you have sitting in front of me? Don't make me stand up here like an idiot. Do it.
It's an ugly number.
Good. That's what I was looking for. What is it? 13 point?
13.928.
Okay, we'll stop there. 13.93. Thank you. First problem was exact answer, square root form. Second problem was approximate answer, decimal form. We're all done. A lot of information in there, but it all is based off of similar ideas. So moving forward, you should be able to work with all of that stuff